Have you been wondering if now is the right time to change careers? If you have been asking yourself that question, you are not alone. I created a new 10-question quiz that will give you the clarity you need. Download the quiz at secondactsuccess.co/quiz. You will get results quick. Plus, you'll get action items for you to implement right away. I am also including private podcast links to give you even more information on how you can move forward to pursue your second act career. You can grab it now at secondactsuccess.co/quiz. Good luck.
I'm going to be glamorous. I'm going to help all these people. I'm going to be famous. Like I had all that. And that fire got put out around the age of probably 26. It was put out until the time I was about 41. And going back to that girl that had stars in her eyes is really important, I think, in creating your second act or your third or your fourth, because you know she's there. You absolutely know she's there. And are you honoring the person you really are if you don't try for it?
Hey, you, are you feeling stuck, desperate for a career change, or thinking of starting a business, but you're just not sure how to make your first move? I'm television producer turned career coach Shannon Russell, and this is the Second Act Success Career Podcast. This is where you will not only get the career advice you've been craving, but you'll get tips from career and business experts, along with inspiration from others who have made a career transition to find second act success. Let's get started. All right, this is a different kind of second act to talk about today. I will be speaking with Kristen Glass. Kristen not only changed careers, but she changed her life physically, emotionally, and mentally by getting healthy and going on a wellness journey that led to her second act career as well. Let's get into my conversation with Kristen Glass. All right, welcome Kristen Glass to Second Act Success. How you doing?
I'm doing great this morning. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have you here. You are a certified health coach, public speaker, artist, but you began your career in the finance insurance world. Is that right?
Correct. I did. Yes. I went to college at Texas Christian University and started as a theater major, actually. My dream would be to be on Broadway right now, starring like as Alexander Hamilton in Hamilton. But I did theater all throughout high school and went to college and thought, I'm going to be a theater major. And I was in the theater major, and my dad came to visit, and he's like, awesome, but you're not going to have any money when you graduate college. And I was like, but my dreams, and my dad is my best friend, and he is incredibly intelligent, incredibly successful. And I took what he said to heart. So I decided to switch, and I was a finance major, and I enjoyed it. I loved it, and actually ended up switching my minor. I'm all about second chances and thirds and fourth and second acts, all the things. So junior, senior year of college, I actually switched my minor to interior design. So I graduated with finance major, interior design minor. After college, I did what you're supposed to do. And I used that in air quotes. I moved to the Northeast to work in finance, and I worked for a commercial insurance company up there doing risk evaluations for pharmaceutical and biotech companies, and actually really enjoyed it. Worked in that industry for about 8 years, had certain goals for myself. And when, had to hit these certain goals, certain titles, I wanted to be the first girl who had a certain title, and did that. And around that same time, got pregnant with my daughter and had a lot of complications and realized this is not what I want to be doing all the time. So I quit and stayed home for all of 43 seconds, and then realized I'm not made to stay home. I'm made to work, but work from home. So I started my own interior design business in 2007 while I was pregnant with my oldest, Caroline, and did that for about 10 years, and still love interior design, love art. We moved into different cities and then moved back to Dallas with my ex-husband's job. So
Okay.
yeah, my interior design business was mostly based here in Dallas, and I was able to do that and be a stay-at-home mom at the same time.
And how did that fit your life at that moment compared to the finance world?
It fit my life because I know without a shadow of a doubt, I wanted to be, and again, I'm using this in air quotes, a stay-at-home mom. It was incredibly important to me that I was the one that raised my children all the time and that I did not have a third party facility or daycare. And I am not knocking that at all. I just know that a core value for myself is being that mom on the ground, being at home with them. Now, when you're a working from home mother, you work a whole lot more than you could possibly imagine. So I figured out if I could work before my daughter got up, and it ended up being daughter and son, before they wake up, while they're taking their naps in carpool lines, I have to be really smart about my work. But you do end up working a whole lot more, but I wanted to be physically present as I was raising my kids.
And so that must have really fulfilled you because you were working, but you were with them. So you were filling both sides of your needs and what you wanted.
Absolutely. And that thought is not in everybody's head, but it was in my head. And I know it was in my head because I knew things were going sideways in my personal life. And so I knew I needed to have a second act. Financially, we appeared to be fine, but I knew in my gut there were things I didn't know. I needed to have something else.
I think a lot of us go through that where we think, oh, being a stay at home mom would be so great. And then you get there and realize that's just not for you. If anything, the pandemic has taught us that we can do both. And you know what? You think about how when these kids graduate and they leave us, then all of those thoughts and worries and fears come in of who am I now? And having that side hustle, whatever you want to call it, that you were working on, that was yours as your plan B. And you needed that for what was to come in your personal life, right?
Totally, totally. You know how your motivations, your passions, your missions, they kind of change. And with you saying kids going off to college, now obviously, so I am still an artist, but majority of my income is made from being a health coach. And health coach meaning helping people lose weight, but it's mental. It's mental to be able to lose weight. And the stage of life I'm in right now, I'm 45. So my oldest is 15, my youngest is 10. I've got a lot of friends who have kids going off to college. And what I've noticed through the health coaching business is there is a huge void and huge fear of the unknown in those moms who have kids leaving. They're scared of what's next for your kids, but there is a lot of fear. You're insecure. You think about the dynamics it has on a husband and wife relationship when you've had children in your home for 18 years. And then you're like, oh, I have to talk to you now. That's a scary stage of life.
Oh, yeah. You and I are the same age. I have an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old. And it makes me think about what I talk with a lot of my clients about when we talk here on the podcast about your identity is not wrapped in your career. And
Right.
it's the same thing with our identity not being wrapped up in motherhood. Whereas if you realize that your identity is who you are, the person you are, and that's what makes it up, it just, you just don't want to put yourself into one basket.
Absolutely. You have no idea what life is about to throw you. And I think the pandemic made us a little bit more malleable with that.
Yes.
Like, we had no clue that the world was about to shut down. My heart goes out to everyone who got sick during COVID and who passed away during COVID. But I loved what COVID life looked like. I think it taught a lot of us about what we can handle, what we can come through career wise. I love what COVID did for mothers because COVID required companies to allow women to stay home. And they realized, hey, these women, and of course, I'm talking mostly to women because I am a woman, but most women are actually more productive when they are at home because they need to compartmentalize time better and they're getting their buckets filled. They know they can go drop off Sarah into a field trip or take her to the doctor. And there's not this guilt and this shame. And as you were just talking too, I was like, this is really my fourth act, if I think about it. So finance was act one. My 43 seconds of being a stay at home mom was act two. Act three was art and interior design. And act four has really been the biggest shift in who I am and what my children get to see me as and the impact and legacy I'm leaving on other people. And that fourth act is being a health and wellness coach. That was one I didn't see coming. And I'm a control freak. I'm a planner. I like to know the things. I'm codependent. I could not have planned seeing this fourth act coming. And I'm so thankful for it because I was able to use a lot of the trauma and a lot of the things I hated about myself, my weight, my anxiety disorder, my codependency, my credit card debt, my marriage, my ex husband's addiction, was able to use that and turn it into a career where I get to help all these other people through that same thing. So the fourth act is really the best act so far, which
I
has been
love
exciting.
that. So let's talk about that then. So you're an interior designer, you're working in your business, you're using your degree in art and interior design. And then where does that shift happen? When do you decide I'm going to try my fourth act?
Okay, so
Absolutely.
I'm a Christian. You'll hear me talk about my faith. You'll also hear me say bad words occasionally, and it's just, they even each other out. So in 2018, I was 220 pounds. I'm 5'4". And the thing was, I was a successful designer and artist. I had an image that everything was great and everything was fun and I was smiling. I had my kids, in the South, we put everybody in smocked clothes and monogrammed things, and they always looked perfect. We were out, vacationing. Everybody thought we were good. The reason I was 220 pounds was I was hiding a lot of secrets. I was dealing with a marriage that was absolutely dead, narcissistic abuse in our home, gaslighting, all the things. We were in credit card debt. I mean, I was just a wreck, but I'd pull it together every day, take my son to preschool. People would say, "Hey, how are you?" And I'd say, "Everything's fine. Everything's good. We're so good." We were not so good. Like, I was hanging on, sitting in my closet. And one night I vividly remember, really bad night at home. And it's a story that involves two people, and it's not, the other
Mhm.
part is not mine to share, but it was a really bad night. And I would go into my closet when I had really bad nights at home. And I would do it after the kids were in bed, and I would turn the faucets all on in our bathroom so that my children could be in their bedroom and they wouldn't hear me like sobbing,
Mm.
just breaking down. Sat in my closet, closed all the doors, praying my kids weren't hearing me, and I was just sobbing. It escalated and some things got some worse that night, and I was a puddle. It's all I can say. I was a puddle on the floor, and I was questioning whether or not God existed. And I've been a Christian since I was young. So I was literally saying, "I don't know that you're there. I do not know that you exist." And I audibly heard God say to me, "Kristen, you are going to use this to help other people." It's the only one of the few times I've heard audibly God speak to me. So I sat there for a second and I thought, well, you're crazy. And apparently I know that you're supposed to know all the things, but this time you're actually wrong. So in April of 2018, I had a dinner that I was going to, and there was wreck after wreck. And what a normal 15-minute drive took me an hour and a half to get to. I wanted to cancel over and over and over again. And I promise this story has a point. And so I show up at the dinner, and one of my friends was there, and she was also overweight, but something looked different about her. And I looked at her and I was like, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Why?" And I was like, "You look great." Now, she was still probably 215 pounds, but she just looked different. And she said, "I'm doing this program." And I was like, and she'd lost maybe 5 or 10 pounds. And I said, "How do I do it?" And she said, "Call my coach." So I called her coach that night. I told the coach, I said, "I need help. I need help losing weight." I told this person I only needed to lose 30 pounds. I needed to lose 70, but I didn't totally know that because I didn't really get on scales. So I signed up to get on this program. I started the program 2 weeks later. By day 4, I knew that God telling me I was going to use all the stuff I was going through to help others. I knew that I was supposed to be a coach to help other people lose weight and get themselves healthy again. And it wasn't because of the weight loss. It was because on day 4 of this program, I felt control.
Mm.
And the life I was living was so incredibly out of my control. All these terrible things were happening that I could not control. And if anybody's in a relationship with an addict, you want so badly to control things and you can't understand how you can't. And the harder you try to control it, the more out of control it gets. So on day 4 in this program, I thought, I'm in control and other people have to know about this. They have to know about this program. So I started coaching and I was like, all right, we're going to do this. I'm going to build this business huge. And it wasn't a financial thing. It was because I knew that I was not alone in being a mom who did everything she was supposed to do, went to college, got the job, had the babies, all this stuff. I knew that there were other moms out there that needed to have this career opportunity and the health program at the same time. And it was 10 o'clock at night. That was another call to my coach. And I said, listen, I'm going to interview every single person in this company who has grown a successful business. I'm going to figure out what the hell they did, and we're going to do that. And you just got to trust me. And that is now my best friend. And we've created a very successful business, helping other people get healthy. So that's how this all came around.
Hey there, my friend. Shannon here, just popping in quickly because I'm wondering, is this episode getting you thinking? Are you starting to come up with ideas for your second act? Maybe it's changing careers, writing a book, starting a business. Whatever it is, I am here to help. You can book a free discovery call with me so that we can chat about your next steps. So head over to secondactsuccess.co/coaching. Now let's get back to the episode. Look at what it's done for you in
Oh my God.
all areas of your life, Kristen. Like, that's huge. And it was a calling from above.
Yeah, I know it was. I know everything. And I would say from the time I was a little girl, I've always had this like seed in my gut that I was created to do something that's going to impact people. I didn't quite know what that meant. And when I coach other people now, I ask them to go back to that place because I actually think pretty much every single person had that seed at one time that told them they were going to be an astronaut or they were going to be a doctor or they were going to, a lot of people's spark got put out way earlier than mine did. I'm really fortunate that I grew up in a family that prioritized travel, prioritized seeing the world, prioritized education, prioritized getting the heck out of Alabama. I was raised in Alabama. Alabama was great for me, but they really encouraged me to go on. And when I'm coaching people now, I say, go back to the last time you remember having that spark and that flame. The last time I remember was when I lived in Boston at 23 or 24 years old. I was walking to work in stiletto boots, smoking a cigarette, had my Walkman with Missy Elliott on in my pocket. And I remember thinking, the world is my oyster. Like, I can't wait to see what I'm going to do. Like, I am going to be fabulous. I'm going to be glamorous. I'm going to help all these people. I'm going to be famous. Like, I had all that. And that fire got put out around the age of probably 26. And it was put out until the time I was about 41. And going back to that girl that had stars in her eyes is really important, I think, in creating your second act or your third or your fourth, because she's there. You absolutely know she's there. And are you honoring the person you really are if you don't try for it? And I'm not sure I would have ever done any of this if I didn't have a little girl and a little boy watching me, because I want them to know that when they are 40 years old, if they realize the life they're living is not serving them, it's not serving others, it's not healthy, it's not safe, I want them to have their mom as a playbook to say, oh, you do get to change things.
Yeah.
You can do it. Like, it's just because you chose to be a teacher doesn't mean you have to be a teacher till you're 65. And I don't think our kids will do that unless we can show them the example of doing that ourselves. So those mornings I don't feel like working, or those mornings that in the beginning where I'm like, I am exhausted, I would go in there, I would take a look at my kids laying in their beds and be like, all right, I got this. I can do this. I can do this for y'all. So I think it's really important. Sometimes we don't have the motivation to do it for us, but we can do it for them.
Yeah. Ah, so well said. And I feel like you're speaking my same language, Kristen, because that's
Love that.
exactly why I started my journey. I was a television producer, and then I started a small business when I had my kids. And now I have my career coaching. We actually just got back from a vacation back in Hollywood, back in Los Angeles with the kids. And we would say, "Oh, that's where we worked," or "Mommy produced that show." And the kids would be like, "You did that?" Like, they don't get it. They just know that I work at home and I have these two businesses. And it's just what you said. Like, they are seeing that they can choose to be a teacher and absolutely love it, but then say, "You know what? I want to be a baker," whatever it might be. And I think that's so exciting because we didn't have that growing up. It was go for your degree. That's what you're going to do until retirement because that's what we saw from our parents. It just was so different. And I love that we in our generation are starting to make that pivot, that change, so that our kids know that they don't have to choose between two things they love. They can do both.
They absolutely can.
Yep.
And I'm always put the and because I'm really fiscal responsibility and financial responsibility are so important to me. It's not magical. You can't just one day say, well, tomorrow I'm going to be a baker without preparing
Yes.
and planning and expecting to work your fanny off. Like, we're in such an instant gratification kind of world that absolutely you can do a second, third, fourth, 18th act, but you will have to put the work in and it's work. And you just have to keep your eye on the prize. Like, what is the prize? Is the prize staying home? Is the prize being fulfilled? Is the prize having impact on other people's lives? But it does take work. The real blessing is in the work. The
Mhm.
real blessing is in the personal development that you have to do. If you're going to have a second act, if you're going to make a big life change, that personal development has to be on point. And I'm not saying spending thousands on, coaches or counselors or anything like that, but you have to do a lot of personal development. You have to go through all of those nights where you're second guessing yourself and thinking, am I crazy? Am I a failure? Are people going to think I'm nuts? All of that good, juicy stuff, that's where the beauty is. It's
Mhm.
in that work that you have to do to get to that second act. So, yeah, I think, of course, everyone can make changes, but it will take work. It's not a magical.
No. That's where the fun is. That's where
Yeah.
you learn about yourself. And that's where we, as 45-year-old moms, are learning more about ourselves and getting excited about ourselves. Where a lot of times people in our position are feeling their worst and they're feeling maybe they're overweight, maybe they aren't contributing to the family, and maybe they just feel like they're tied up in their kids, but they're longing for something that's theirs. They're longing for that creativity. And it's when you start to think that you have value in wanting to pursue what you want. And so taking that moment, having the light bulb go off, and then starting to make that plan towards your second, third, fourth, fifth act, and knowing that you deserve to have that and you can get there. It might take 2 years, but you can start working towards it. My success didn't happen overnight, but I want to go to yours. So now you're seeing that this program is working for you. You're
Mhm.
losing weight, you're feeling better. And then you say, okay, I'm going to be a coach now and I'm going to build a business. How did you start pivoting to growing a business as a health coach?
Okay, so I don't know that it was formulaic or systematic, but I was so obsessed with this program of weight loss and weight management and overall physical health. It is safe, it's healthy, it was developed by a doctor, it's not a quick fix. It requires you to do mental work. So I was super obsessed with that. And I had a bunch of friends that were a lot like me and like drank too much wine at night and ate too many chips. So my strategy was literally, I didn't necessarily think about the business part of it at first. I just was calling friends and like, hey, Melissa, you got to do this. You look a little chubby. Like, trust me, this is awesome. Margaret, I know you struggle with your weight. You got to try this. It's incredible. So that's how I initially did it. But when I got more serious about, wait a minute, this business has the potential to allow me to really stay home. I also knew that I was probably going to need to be able to support my kids by myself. So I knew I needed to be able to pay for private school. I knew I needed to be able to pay a mortgage. Once I realized the possibilities with this business structure for mothers and fathers or people in general who wanted to have different options, and options can look like a little bit of extra income, a lot of extra income, that it really was dependent on your work and how much work you're willing to put into this, it seemed kind of like a no-brainer. I thought, I've got this opportunity right here. And so what I literally did was figure out who had been successful in our company, not just our company, though. I looked at other network marketing, direct selling companies. I had friends in different businesses and said, what do you do? Like, how do you grow these businesses? What are some feedback you can give me, some tips you can give me? And I just thought, I don't have time to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to do what those people did. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They want to reinvent the wheel to protect them from their own fears.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have time to do that. Like, you go tell me to dance on a stage in a purple leotard, with pink hair, and that's how you become successful. I was just going to do that if you were successful telling me. It just made sense.
Yep.
And I still had my other business. So I was full time with that and the 2 kids and then some other life stuff. I had to know just the action steps to be successful. And I just did that. I just emulated. I had to get creative. This is going to sound kind of weird, but this is advice I give to everybody who is starting like a second act, second business. So I love podcasts. 5 years ago, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I didn't have self-help books. If you look at my desk right now, I've got all kind of motivational books and all kind of neat things. I didn't know about any of that. I didn't have the money for therapy. I didn't have the money for a business coach. So I made my new nightly ritual as I decided to grow this business become sitting in a bathtub, drinking a cup of tea with a podcast on, or we have all these trainings with our company. And I would put my laptop up on the bathroom counter. They were recording, so I wasn't like naked on a screen or anything. But
Good.
I would listen to these trainings. And I got my brain in this place of realizing what a gift that I have the opportunity to grow a business. And I can listen to all these people who've been really successful telling me what to do for once, as opposed to me telling people what to do. And my nightly ritual after the kids went to bed was to listen to trainings. I would always tell anybody in any business, whatever business you're doing, find somebody who's more successful than you and just do what they're doing. But I think people avoid that one place, even with the weight loss, when they see other people being more successful than they are with weight loss. They still avoid following those steps because it could expose insecurities, fears, doubts, work. People try to like circumvent the hard and you
Mm-hmm.
just can't.
Right.
It's impossible.
So you were able to lose the weight,
Mhm.
build a business, and grow this life that you only dreamt about.
Yes, I didn't know what was possible. The other part and the other thing that I'm really, really passionate about and advocate for, I went through a divorce during that time, a really tricky divorce. We moved houses. I'm remarried now. Like, I've gone through a lot of life at the same time as doing that. And I think that's why I wake up every morning so excited to work, because I don't know many other careers that you could do all of that at the same time. I get really fired up because I'm dealing with something personally. And my kind of motto is like, I've got all this extra energy, this negative energy, this stress, this anxiety. It's got to get channeled somewhere. So I'm just going to go channel it on somebody else and help them. That's why I get so excited and so fired up too when I get to help other people.
All right, it's time for our 5 fast cues of the week. Here we go. Name one thing that these different chapters in your life have taught you.
Okay, so I get really excited about tumultuous times now. When stuff is just not going right, when stuff is hard, when you get those really big sucker punches, I know that there's something coming out of that. Some people may think that's too optimistic. My answer is, what else do you have to do? Be negative? Like, how's that going to help anything? But I really, really do now look for meaning in every single thing that happens. And I know that every tough thing that happens to me or to my family or even in the world right now, there's something to learn from it and to use to help other people. So I'm not scared of adversity, and I don't try to control to avoid adversity anymore. That was my MO, was I tried to control life so that I wouldn't be embarrassed, so I wouldn't feel pain, so I wouldn't feel adversity. And in that grip on control, I lost myself. And so I'm a lot more free to just let life happen. And I know that there's going to be something positive that comes out of negative things.
Would you recommend taking a leap into a big life change to your best friend?
150% with smart controls in place. I think about my best friend, and she and I are very similar. She's firstborn girl, high achiever. We were both nerds in high school. She'll probably kill me for saying that. We both have massive control issues, and life has thrown us huge sucker punches. And part of me thinks it's because we were so resistant to losing control that God was like, hey, you two stubborn girls, we're just going to do some hard things for you. And now we both just kind of laugh. We're like, what is life doing? But we're much better people on the other side of it. So absolutely.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is starting their second act today?
Stop looking at what's definite or undeniable. And what I mean by that is I think we have a tendency, especially at our age, to not look at what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
We have this tendency to revert back to what's safe. And what's safe means something that's undeniable or that we know or that is a for sure. A lot of times, if you're looking for the definites, they're not always super positive, but it's the reason people stay stuck in kind of crappy situations. It's like, what's that quote? The devil you know is better than the one you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So people stay stuck in what they know and what's definite and what's for sure because there is comfort in the known. I want to encourage people not just to look at what's probable, because then that's the next step people take. Well, this is probable that I could probably do this. Skip probable and go to possible. And if you're shooting for possible, you're going to end up at probable. And if you're shooting for probable, you're going to end up at definite. So my piece of advice would be focus on what's possible, not what's definite, not what's for sure, not even what's probable, but figure out what is absolutely possible and shoot for that.
What does your next act look like? Do you have a next act after this?
I want to and will hope that I get to work for this company for the rest of my life, and is my next act. And I have a burning desire inside of me to be someone who gets to speak not just on physical health, mental health, but on divorce recovery. I want to be able to be that person. I didn't know people that were divorced when I got divorced. Divorce was the best thing that happened to me and to my two children. And their dad is still in their life, and that's great. But they got to see their mom, the real me. They got to see the best version of me. They got to live in a home without tension, which is crushing for kids. That's what I see next. I see next this place where I get to go let women know, and men, it's okay to get divorced. And I almost didn't because of all of the I couldn't think about all the paperwork and all the this and the that and the unknowns. The best life we got to live was on the other side of it. So that's my next. And I don't know what that looks like quite yet, but that's coming up too.
So where can my audience connect with you and learn more about your health coaching and the business that you've built?
On Instagram, it's Gypsy Soul Living. Gypsy Soul Interiors was my old interiors company, and I just modified it to Gypsy Soul Living. And on Facebook, it's Kristen Glass.
Perfect. I'll link to everything in the show notes. And I thank you so much, Kristen. I feel like everything you said resonated with me, and I know it resonated with my listeners, and I'll be following along and supporting you.
Well, you too. I'm super impressed by you. The same thing. I love meeting badass mom boss who take charge of their life so that we can be present and do the both and. I think it's awesome. So
I love
thank
it.
you.
Thank you. How inspiring is Kristen, you guys? Everything seemed like it was going okay. She was showing the world that everything was perfect, but it really, really wasn't. She found a way to make herself feel healthy And then she loved the way that she could help coach others, and she was able to turn that into a business. So truly, truly inspiring, Kristen. Thank you for sharing your journey with us today. You can connect with Kristen on Instagram at Gypsy Soul Living. Thank you for spending part of your day with me, my friend. If you enjoyed the show today, please head over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the podcast, and leave us a review. It really means so much. Thanks again, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found some gems of inspiration and some takeaways to help you on your path to second act success. To view show notes from this episode, visit secondactsuccess.co. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Reviews only take a few moments, and they really do mean so much. Thank you again for listening. I'm Shannon Russell, and this is Second Act Success.